Welcome to George on Cars. Today, I've got an amazing video. I'm going to share 5 things that you need to check on your car before you go on that summer road trip, and 5 things that you should bring on that road trip to make sure that your car doesn't let you down. But before we get to the video, let me tell you a little bit about this month's Charity of the Month. And by the way, if there's any content you want to see on the channel, send me an email at georgeoncars@gmail.com. This month's Charity of the Month is the Windsor Essex County Humane Society. Now, the society opened their doors in 1926 in a citizen's backyard, and since then they've been promoting responsible pet ownership and compassion for all living things. In 2018, almost 12,000 animals went through the doors of the Windsor Essex County Humane Society, and they couldn't possibly provide that level of support without donations from the public and private sector. So if you enjoyed this video, click on the link in the show notes below and donate if you can. And make sure you check out their website, which is full of some amazing information. You might even find yourself a furry friend. I'm also going to add some links to some other great animal charities if you'd rather donate to one of those instead. Thanks a lot for supporting these great charities, and I hope you enjoy the video. So it's that time of year when we're all getting ready to go on our summer road trips, and the last thing you need on a good road trip is your car breaking down. So I want to share with you 5 things you should check on your vehicle before you go on that road trip, and 5 things that you really should bring with you on that road trip in case you have car problems. So let's get started. So the first thing you want to check on your vehicle is the tires. And there's 3 things you want to check on your tires. You want to check for damage, you want to check for wear and tear, you want to check for tire pressure. Now, with regards to damage, you should just do a physical visual inspection of all 5 tires. And I say 5 tires because you should always double check your spare tire. So look for damage if there's nails in the tire, if there's screws in the tire, if the sidewalls are cracked, or anything unusual on your tire. Maybe it's chunking. If it is, if you have any of those, make sure you take your vehicle to a shop, have the tire replaced. Second thing you want to look for is odd wear on your tire. Maybe the inside or the outside of the tire is wearing differently, which could mean you need an alignment, or if the overall tire is worn down to the tread wear indicator, it might be time to replace that tire. Now, the tread wear indicator on this tire and on most tires is located perpendicular to the tire tread. And if your tire tread is equal to or less than the tread wear indicator, it's time for new tires. Now, the last thing you want to check with regards to the tires is the tire pressure. So I would get a tire pressure gauge, go around to all 4, actually all 5 tires, because you want to make sure that your spare tire has air pressure. So go around to all 5 tires with your tire pressure gauge and check the pressure. Now, if you don't know what the tire pressure should be on your vehicle, there's usually 2 spots on your car where that information exists. On the inside of the driver's door is one, and then on the inside of the fuel door is another. And if you can't find it in those 2 spots, a third spot is the owner's manual. Now, the second area that you're going to want to check on your vehicle before you go on that road trip would be the fluid level and the fluid quality. Now, on this vehicle, I would start out checking the engine oil, and that's easy enough to do. On this vehicle, you just pull the dipstick out of the engine block, and the dipstick is located on top of the engine. Wipe it down with a clean paper towel or a cloth, insert the dipstick back into the engine block all the way, and then pull it back out and check the fluid level. If it's at the full level, you're all set and don't need to do anything. If it's a little bit low, you'll want to top it up with some fresh engine oil. Now, if the engine oil is black or really dirty, your best bet is to take it to a mechanic and have it changed. The next fluid you'd want to check would probably be your coolant level. And on this vehicle, that's easy enough to do. The coolant reservoir is located on the right side of the engine bay, and it has 2 markings on it. It has a max and a min marking, and you want to make sure that your fluid is in between those 2 markings. If it's a little bit low, you'll want to have it topped up. You also want to check the quality of that fluid and make sure that it's nice and clean. It's not brown, dirty, or burnt looking. Now, the next fluid level you'll want to check on your vehicle would be the washer fluid. And really, you don't want to check the washer fluid, you just want to top it up, because you want to make sure on your road trip that you don't run out of washer fluid and have a hard time seeing out of your windshield. Now, on this vehicle, the washer fluid reservoir has a blue cap, and it's located on the right side of the engine bay. And all you need to do is pop it open and fill it up with a good quality washer fluid. Now, I always like to use a winter washer fluid that's good till -35 or -40, as opposed to a summer washer fluid, just because if you don't run the summer washer fluid out of your reservoir by the end of the season, it could freeze and cause you some problems. Now, there are some fluid levels that you could check on your engine, but I wouldn't bother because they haven't been giving me any problems, and they're probably fine. And those would include the power steering fluid, the transmission fluid, and the brake fluid. And unless you're experiencing problems with those areas of your vehicle, you really don't need to check them. Now the third thing you want to check on your vehicle would be your exterior lights, and that's going to include your headlights along with the high beams, your tail lights along with the backup lights, and your brake lights. And also, don't forget your turn signals. Now it's very important you do this because you don't want to be in the middle of the highway at night driving with any of these lights burnt out, as that's going to be a huge safety issue. So make sure you grab a friend, check all your exterior lights, and if you're having any problems, go to your local store, pick up the parts you need and fix it yourself, or take it to a local shop that you trust and have them do it for you. Now the fourth thing that you should have checked on your vehicle, and this is probably the most important one, is the brakes on your car. Especially if you're noticing any squeaking, grinding, or irregular sounds, make sure you have your brakes checked before you go on your road trip. You may also be noticing some pulsing or the front end of the vehicle shaking when you apply your brakes, and that could mean that you have warped rotors, and you'll definitely want to have that looked at as well, again, before you go on your trip. There's some things you can do yourself though, and you should do a visual inspection on your brakes. Just take a quick look around the car at all four brakes and take a look and see if there's any cracks, any irregularities in the rotor, or any problems with the pads. Now the fifth and final thing you're going to want to check on your vehicle would be your car's battery. And you especially want to check the battery if you're finding your vehicle's hard to start, or if the engine's having a hard time turning over when you do try to start it. Now the first thing you're going to want to check on your battery would be your battery terminals. And you're going to want to see if there's corrosion built up on the terminals. And if there is, you definitely want to spend a couple minutes and clean it up. The second thing you want to check on your battery, assuming you have a non-maintenance free battery, is the water level inside your battery. And that's easy enough to do. You just take the caps off the top of the battery, look inside to see what the water level's like. If it's a little bit low, make sure you put in some fresh distilled water and then put the caps back on. Now if you're still unsure whether or not your battery is good, it's always a good idea to take it to your local parts store where they can test it, or to your local garage where they can also test it and replace it if necessary. So those are the 5 things that you should check on your vehicle before you head out on that road trip, before you hit the highway. Now here's 5 things that you should carry in your vehicle while you're on that road trip to make sure that your car doesn't leave you stranded anywhere. So some of those things are, I always like to carry a fire extinguisher. You never know what's going to happen. Odds are your car is not going to catch on fire, but if it does, it's always good to keep one of these in the trunk. The other thing I like to keep in the trunk here is I like to keep a rain poncho, work gloves, and a flashlight, because if you do get stuck somewhere and need to change a tire, flashlight's handy in case it's dark. The work gloves are going to keep your hands clean, and if it's raining, a rain poncho, as silly as it is going to keep you dry. The other thing I always like to keep in the trunk is a can of Fix-A-Flat. A lot of times it's not always the safest area to change a tire. Sometimes you get a flat tire on a highway or a busy road. You really don't want to pull the jack out of the car and jack the vehicle up and change the tire right there. So a can of Fix-A-Flat is a great thing. You'll be able to get your tire pressure back up. You'll be able to seal the leak temporarily, and that's going to give you some time to get to a shop and have the tire properly repaired. Another thing I like to keep in the vehicle is either a set of booster cables, or better yet, the battery booster pack. Booster cables are great, but you do need another car to quote, jump your battery. I really like these booster packs because they're self-sufficient. Just make sure it's charged before you leave on your road trip. Put it in the trunk, and then you're going to be all set in case you do have a dead battery. Now, if you were lucky enough to buy a Volvo back in the 2000s, Volvo actually gave you a really amazing emergency roadside kit. And it contains some of the things that we have here. As you can see, you have your work gloves. You actually have a reflective blanket that's going to keep you warm in case you do get stranded on a cold day. You also have some matches and candles, which again are going to keep the car at a reasonable temperature in case you get stranded on a cold day. There is a whole emergency survival kit with matches and everything. They also there give you a safety vest. They also give you an emergency rain poncho. They give you the battery booster cables that I had talked about earlier, a flashlight, and even a safety cone. So there's a lot of great things there in the Volvo emergency roadside kit that they gave you along when you bought a Volvo car, which is really nice. I'm not sure if they do that anymore or not, but probably the coolest thing they gave you though was this sign that said, "Call the police." So apparently that comes in the emergency roadside kit, and apparently if you were at your wit's end and couldn't change your tire, or your vehicle was broken down and you needed help, apparently you would somehow display that sign and hope a passerby calls the police for you. Well guys, that's it. Those are the 5 things you need to check on your vehicle before you go on that big road trip, and 5 things that you should bring with you to make sure that road trip goes off without a hitch. Now I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please hit like and subscribe, but most importantly, support the charity of the month if you can. Thanks a lot, and we'll see you in the next video.